Transition Team Informational meeting. We are so glad that you are here with us today. We have about 80 people or so, well, 80 plus people signed into our meeting this morning because there are individuals here, but there's also groups of consistories that are gathering to here together this morning from NEMA. We will have about a 30-minute presentation from our transition team leaders who are prepared to share with us today. And then we will have time for question and answers following that. We do have a few ground rules for the meeting this morning since there are so many of us on Zoom today. So I want to share those with you as we get started. All participants will have their microphones muted. Questions shall be submitted through the chat. If you need to find the chat, it should be on the bottom of your screen off to the left. Questions will be addressed after the designated presentation time. So that will be around 11:15 this morning, and we will finish up around noon. If you are observing and intend to not join the middle assembly that is presenting, please give priority to those who are interested in joining the presenting middle assembly and asking questions. Additional questions and feedback for the transition teams may be submitted to me, Lindsay DeCreif, the Synod Program Coordinator. I think I forgot that introduction this time. At programcoordinator@albanysynod.org. That email is the one that I've been sending information for this meeting from and is in your inbox. So you can send those to me following the Zoom gathering if you have any more feedback or questions. We are recording the session today. This recording is primarily for the transition team to review their presentation, and they may decide at a later date to share that more widely, whether it's just with those who attend or more publicly on the Albany Synod website, but you will get information about that if that's the decision that is made. I'm going to hand this off quickly to Dirk Gieser, the president of the Regional Synod of Albany, just to give a brief welcome to everyone this morning as well. So Dirk, I'll let you take over and then we'll hand it off to our presenters.
All right. Well, probably 80% of you have already been welcomed, but for those who are just jumping in now, Pastor Dirk Gieser, I'm at Emmanuel Reformed Church. I've been part of the Albany classis for over 20 years, and I currently serve here in Castleton, been here for about 12, and I'm on the far eastern side of things. So, it's a fur piece from here to Climber Hill. But it is good to gather together. I do again want to just thank Rochester Classis for getting this ball rolling. We said, hey, we want the transition teams to have opportunities. Rochester is like, it's not easy for us to get together because of geography and because it's winter. And seeing as I've got an extra 2 inches of snow outside this morning, good call, Rochester. They got this going. But once we put it out there, as you can see, it has grown to over a third of the congregations of the Regional Synod of Albany represented. Every classis, we've got multiple consistory watch parties looking at both middle assemblies, which is great. We talked a little bit earlier about how this ultimately is a consistory decision. That's who we are as the RCA. We are assembly led, and the consistory is the assembly that makes the decision for the congregation. And that is in partnership with the whole picture. But just as each one of you, part of a consistory, thank you for spending a Saturday morning looking at this. And also just a reminder that this is not the Regional Synod of Albany splitting. This is launching two middle assemblies that we hope both will thrive, both will meet the needs of congregations, both will engage in meaningful ministry, and that God can use in different ways. So that is where we're heading, of two different middle assemblies. This time is so you can hear, okay, well, what do they prioritize? What do they prioritize? Where are their boundaries? Where are their boundaries? What are, important to them? What are their hopes and dreams? How do they see themselves structuring? Looking at all these different important factors and then saying, where is our congregation likely to fit best? I want success for this whole process. I want success for each of your congregations. Um, I'm very pleased. There is no perfect process, but I've talked to people in other regions, and I like what we're doing here. Um, that this is seemingly to work forward, and I thank you for engaging in this process. Um, if you've seen the timeline, that over the next couple months, we encourage your consistories to think about this. Um, and then once the presentations have happened and we're heading into May, then you can say, hey, we see we're likely to fit best in this congregation or this middle assembly or that middle assembly. Um, Technically, you have until the end of September to decide, but we're pretty confident that most congregations are going to sense relatively quickly of what the best fit is, and then to have classes work with those who are questioning. Or those who are saying, yeah, maybe it's a middle assembly that's not even one of these two, but outside this region. So all this is in process, but this time is important to it. So thank you so much, and let me just offer a word of prayer. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for technology that allows us to connect all the way across the state of New York, across so many different geographic boundaries, but also situational differences of size of churches and history of churches and desires of churches. Lord, I thank you for each member of these congregations that is here today. Help them to listen well, to be guided by your Spirit, to go back and engage with their congregation, specifically with their consistory, well, so that body can make a decision that is wise and fruitful. Lord, we thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your church and that we get to be part of it. Amen.
I'll hand it off now to Trey Turpek and Amy Burdett, who are presenting on behalf of NEMA this morning. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping our presentation is working well and I'm in the bottom corner of your screen. Is that true, Lindsay?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
thank
great.
you.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Trey Turpak. I'm the pastor of the Community Reformed Church of Colony. If you're wondering where that is, if you know where the Albany Airport is, we're right around the corner. Today, I'm accompanied by Amy, and I'll have Amy introduce herself.
Hi. Hi, good morning. Can everyone hear me? Wonderful. I am Amy Burdett. I am the elder representative from the Rochester classes, member at the Pulteneyville Reformed Church, and I am the one of the team members of the Northeastern Middle Assembly transition team as well. There are 12 of us on our team. So we are very delighted to all get together and work together, and also to have this technology be able to work on a day like today as well. I am also going to lead us in a short prayer as we discern today. So please join me. Heavenly Father, we join today in your spirit and light to discern a new middle assembly of delightfulness. Be with us, Lord, and walk with us through this changing time so that we may do your will, to love you with all our heart and love our neighbors as ourselves. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. As Amy alluded to, the Northeast Middle Assembly transition team, there's 12 of us, all from all different parts of our classes across the region. And our name, Northeastern Middle Assembly, comes from two things. There's a tradition in the Reformed Church to name assemblies based on their geographic location. And this will largely be our geographic location. And also, NEMA is close enough to the Hebrew word of delightfulness. And so we're having that audacious goal that our assembly would be full of delightfulness.
The overview of our presentation today. Our hope today is to do the following. We want to give you a lot more information on the direction that the transition team is going into to make a functioning middle assembly, which, obviously it will inevitably change once we're organized.
But I want to also tell you and reaffirm all that was said earlier and today. Please do go to the Regional Synod's website. I think it should be required reading for you and your consistories, particularly the frequently asked questions. I think you should read the whole thing, not just look for questions that interest you, because it will just broaden your knowledge of what a middle assembly is, and maybe questions you didn't know you had will be answered. And so I think you should definitely go to the Regional Synod's website and find those things there.
Hear and answer your questions. We as NEMA transition team want to hear your question. Now, there will be things that are just unknown at this time, but we want to hear questions. And today, at the very end of this presentation, that is the time to do that. If there is something that comes into your head as we're speaking today, please feel free to put it into the chat per the ground rules, and we will address those questions at the very end.
And a little bit about what we're not doing here today as NEMA presenters, which was kind of touched on by the Abiding Middle Assembly, is that we're not here to sell this assembly to you or to recruit you to this assembly or say, don't join Abiding or any other assembly. We are here to communicate as honestly as we can about our assembly, which is the Northeast Middle Assembly, and to show you that we welcome all those who would like to join this assembly. And join is a very intentional word because you and your consistories are discerning which assembly to join because you will be part of it as active members. I think maybe sometimes this conversation about middle assemblies has turned into, well, what will they provide me? And really, it's a conversation about how will I show up with the larger body of Christ in the Reformed Church and a wider body, and participate in the work that we're called to do together. So you have discernment work, and we're hoping that this information will help you with that. And so we will now move on to our talk about the structure of our presentation.
The first half of this presentation will inform you of the general identity and likely ministries of the Northeastern Middle Assembly. These are some core things we'll probably start with, but that doesn't mean they won't change as the churches join.
And the second half will share with you what we've been talking about as how to structure NEMA for all the tasks that the Book of Church Order requires of a middle assembly.
Identity and ministry. Our identity statement is, by God's grace, we are Reformed disciples, all gathered and connected at Christ's table to minister to the total life of all people. We want to be an assembly defined by grace, first shown to us by God. You will see this reflected in our 4 commitments below.
But first, a few quick notes about some nouns in that identity statement. The first is we understand Reformed disciples to be particular, historic, and current. We're within a tradition that has particular confessions and ways of doing things and history, but we also believe this is an active tradition. We also have those within our assemblies right now in classes who are our Reformed ecumenical colleagues. ministers from other denominations. And so that's why Reformed disciple is a big, roomy word there. And we want to make sure that we're gathered together at Christ's table. Again, another allusion to roomy and delightfulness. And that final phrase, total life of all people, is an allusion to the Book of Church Order. And we think that that's a good summary of the extent of ministry. But with that, I hope you hear some of the implicit scriptural inspiration behind our 4 commitments.
Living relationally. Commitment 1. At its core, church is the gathered people of God, and we really do desire the Northeastern Middle Assembly to be a relational assembly. We want connections, we want relationships. We hope you'll see that throughout our talk today. Our second commitment we have listed is flourishing. Because we are committed to being relational, we are committed to one another's flourishing. We want to raise up people and ministries to be all in that God calls them to be. We want you to flourish, which is a high calling, the very highest. Faithful adaptability. Because we are relational and desire one another's flourishing, we know that we will need to adapt and change over time. We want to faithfully respond to God's call on us during this time and in our place today. And the greatest respect. Because we are recipients of God's grace, we expect everyone will show up with respect for one another. We are committed to respect for one another because of our previous commitments. We want to respect the people in ministries in NEMA because we assume you are trying to faithfully respond to God's call. Are you a small church? We respect you. Are you a large church with many programs? We respect you as well. Are you in transition between ministers, in a congregational crisis, a minister struggling perhaps, or someone trying a new creative idea? We respect you. And because you are a part of this assembly, we expect that you will respect others in this assembly. One of the ways we are committed to being respectful is how we live into our inclusion.
So NEMA is committed to and expects those in the assembly to respect one another, including others' viewpoints, particularly regarding LGBTQ plus inclusion. So what does that mean? Well, there will be people who don't agree on LGBTQ plus viewpoints in NEMA. That is just going to be a fact. And there will be churches who have a traditional understanding of marriage. NEMA will not force them to change. And there will be churches who call and ordain office bearers who are LGBTQ plus. And NEMA will act to make that happen. So what will be expected by and for all is mutual respect and inclusion. People and churches won't be excluded on the basis of who they are or their views regarding LGBTQ plus inclusion. If you have questions concerning this, I'd be happy to answer them as best I can after our talk today, or we can always talk at a later time too. But let's now move from identity to the kind of ministries that we as the NEMA transition team are striving for.
There are some ministries that we hope to continue. That is the School of Ministry, mediation team, partnerships that we have built with Camp Fowler and practical resources for churches, consistory training, grants, retreat opportunities, as well as seminarian and student support. We as the NEMA transition team are striving to keep these ministries. We hope that none of the existing synod ministries will be eliminated if we have enough resources. That being said, these ministries will probably look different, but we are confident that those who will be joining NEMA want ministries like these and will work to keep them going and growing in order to minister to the total life of all people. We also want you to know that the NEMA transition team will be asking classes about ministries that they currently have as classes that would be good to continue.
And from our identity, of course, we want to be connected relationally and flourish. And so we think about that as the NEMA transition team of care and collectives together. So these would be maybe regional groups of churches that will network together, maybe churches that want to found a new church, or maybe they have a shared ministry or interest they would like to connect about, minister support, or simply just connecting with other ministers. Small church support. Currently, we as the transition team haven't made too many decisions around care collectives, and we've done that intentionally because we don't want to arbitrarily put people together. And that's because we want there to be relationships that are true, that are very meaningful, and relationships that are beyond just our committees and annual meetings. Currently, there's a discussion that maybe there would be collectives that are geographic in nature, interest-based, maybe three. Truthfully, once we get a better idea of the makeup of NEMA, we will likely put people and organize for that to happen well. But the point here is that there is a strong interest in making something that is about care and connection. You can be confident that something that is fitting to what people want will be made. On our bullets today, we have a small church support. We're going to be talking more about that later.
Moving into NEMA structure. There are many things the Book of Church Order requires a middle assembly to accomplish, and we are structuring things according to that. Meetings and membership. One required annual meeting, which due to the size of the area of coverage, very well could be online. One additional in-person gathering centered around relationships and growth that won't likely be required, but strongly encouraged, so that we can grow those relationships. Online meetings will be necessary for committees and other meetings, but in-person things will also happen. Membership in the assembly will follow the Book of Church Order.
Well, as we mentioned, the Book of Church Order gives many tasks to a middle assembly. A middle assembly is unique in that it's neither a classis nor a regional synod, but does the overwhelming majority of both. And so we have come up with 6 committees that will do the lion's share of work in between stated sessions of the middle assembly. And so here are these 6 committees. The first one would be an executive committee or a board of trustees. Legally, it would be easiest to have them set up this way. And then a subcommittee of that would be a personnel committee. And that's because we expect to have staff. And so if you're wondering about staffing in the NEMA, the answer is yes. But currently, we don't know what the roles would be. It's kind of hard to determine which staffing we should hire for, as we don't know who will be the makeup of NEMA. We have kind of an obvious one of the clerk, but beyond that, it's hard to know what staff we will want and need, but we will definitely be interested in staffing. The next committee would be Finance and Assets Committee. And they would be in charge of attending to the budget and financial oversight of the Middle Assembly. The transition team, we want you to know, is working to understand how the different classes currently manage their finances as helpful information for how finances could work in NEMA. Another thing this committee would do would be attend to asset management. The Middle Assembly will definitely have to manage some form of property in its future, but also there will be investments that need oversight, and this committee would take care of that. Third one on this slide is judicial business and overtures. Judicial business is very clear. The Book of Church Order has very clear expectations around judicial business, and so we will follow that. And it also would make sense that this group would review any overtures that are either coming from the General Synod or maybe even any that NEMA is authoring to send ourselves. Our next three committees, the first one is Ordained and Commissioned Ministry. The committee will give oversight and support to all those in ordained and commissioned ministry, everything from creating policies to even giving grants. That would be an oversight of ministers, whether they are installed, retired, specialized, chaplains, full communion members. We also expect that there will be Canadians and maybe even social workers within this assembly, and so this committee would attend to that. They'd also make the policies around pay scale or helping endorse chaplains where that makes sense. Next, this committee would also attend to elders, preaching elders, commissioned pastors, and deacons. If you're a preaching elder and you're wondering about where you would be in NEMA, we want to assure you that you won't be losing your commissioning, but we will examine current classes policies and create a policy for NEMA. We want to support you in your role as preaching elders, and since there's currently many different practices around preaching elders, it would just be good for you and everyone that there would be just clear expectations of how we would love preaching elders to flourish in our midst.
You'll also notice that there are commissioned pastors and deacons on the list. This is something that NEMA may be interested in bolstering. How or what that would look like is not an immediate priority, but there is definitely an interest here. Students under care. We hope to continue the classes practices of nurturing our students, both individually and hopefully even financially, if possible.
And one more thing about commissioned pastors would be that just like preaching elders, there's no need to worry that your commissioning will continue. And as we develop policies, we would loop you in and get your input as well. Next is our Congregational Support Committee. This committee will give oversight and support to congregations and their functioning and flourishing. And we'd also expect this committee to give grants. First, they would help with supervision and support. We're hoping that this committee will attend and help ministers who are installed and encourage them in their calling. Currently, different classes have different practices on how to do this well, and NEMA will work to create best practices for our shared flourishing. But one of the probably major things this committee will attend to are smaller churches. And so NEMA, as the transition team, we've been discussing how best to care for congregations who are under supervision. That might be particularly smaller congregations that are not actively searching for a minister. Our desire is to come alongside you. And one of the ways we've been having this discussion is exploring, there's been no decisions made, but we're exploring a chapel designation for churches who would fit a certain criteria. The current discussion is that congregations that do not meet most of the expectations of the Book of Church Order, or maybe the Consistory Report Form, or some other criteria, might best be placed into a category that we would establish called chapel, where there will be clear supervision expectations. I want this to sound very clear. This category would not be punitive, but rather we're just hoping that it would feel fitting to the reality of your church. Because two of the central purposes of a chapel criteria would be to better help churches of this size in their situation. and to help clarify expectations for ministers supervising them. Of course, all of this would be in line with the Book of Church Order. Our hope is that it would be a caring designation. Separate but maybe related to this is questions that we hear quite frequently from people. Will some churches close? And the answer that the NEMA transition team has is inevitably yes, but never alone. Will NEMA seek to close churches against their will? Might be the other question lying under that. And the NEMA transition team answer is probably not. But there may be situations where we relationally and respectfully discuss what it means to be faithful and adapt accordingly.
As members of NEMA, it is expected that all churches honestly engage the nature and scope of their ministry. Maybe a chapel designation could be just that, maybe something else. But a chapel designation would not mean that NEMA plans to close you. That is not its purpose. What we hope you hear is that we relationally care and respect one another. Ministries Board, special programs, and events. Our hope is that this committee will create programs and events similar but also different to the Synod Ministries Board. We want to engage and bring about relationships, flourishing, and growth amongst our members. From consistory trainings to building up and connecting preaching elders, supporting ministers, to maybe even helping coordinate diaconate ministries or doing public theology. This committee would also help to create events like retreats. This committee may give grants for special things, but the thinking is that the two above committees will give grants for their respective responsibilities. This committee would be giving other kinds of grants.
And so that's as much information as we have for you now. Again, I encourage you to visit the Regional Synod's website, www.albanysynod.org/restructure. There you'll find the frequently asked questions, but also the suggested timeline, and as well as the identity and mission handout for NEMA. But I also encourage you to connect with your clerk and be connected with your classes, as classes are operating within that timeline in their own fashion. And so please become aware of those things. And I'm wondering, actually, Lindsay, after this, do you mind putting in the chat when NEMA's gatherings are planned to be? That'd be great.
Yes, I
But
can
we
do
will
that.
move to our questions, and I will stop sharing.
Yeah, so
You are viewing the meeting.
at this time, you're welcome to put your questions in the chat, and we do have a couple of questions that are carryovers from the last group that might also be appropriate for to ask NEMA. But I will start with this one from Kinderhook Reformed Church. How does the assembly plan on dealing with contradictions between assemblies for adherents or members who might attend services or seek care from more than one church, whether at different times or concurrently, being that they would consider themselves in the same denomination? How do these differences affect interaction with employment law when an ordained LGBTQ plus minister is not considered for a position in a church within the same denomination or even assembly?
Yeah, so I'll just take the first question.
Sure.
Much like the abiding assembly, um, I'll put it this way. Whatever church you're a member of, you're a member of that church, but you are welcome to connect with other congregations around. In fact, I, like Dirk, encourage both ecumenical, but also within our church denomination connection. And so I hope that you would seek flourishing in what God's calling you to in that time, even if there's, questions around mispractice, that would be dealt with by your own board of elders and consistory. But the second one is, how do these differences affect interaction with employment law when an ordained LGBTQ plus minister is not considered for a position in a church? Um, I think it's pretty fair to say, and I'm not a lawyer, so someone who would tell me otherwise, I would take that. But churches are allowed to decide whom they are going to call to ministry. That is just a religious freedom that can happen. I hope that's a sufficient answer for that.
Thanks, Trey. Here from Sharon. Would you be providing training for elders to become supervisors for churches without called ministers? I think this is referring to the recent changes to the Book of Church Order, which allow for elders to become supervisors of churches that are without an installed minister.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think NEMA would we would love to entertain this question. And the ordained and commissioned ministry committee, or the congregational support committee, I think this would fall under that. I think we have to make a policy about if we are going to have elders be the sole supervisors of churches without a supervisor, or churches that need supervision. Um, but I think NEMA would welcome creative thinking about this, and so I want to say probably, but not don't know for sure.
Since there aren't any more questions in the chat right now, I'm going to pull up some questions that were asked at the previous abiding assembly
Oh wait,
presentation.
Lindsay, sorry,
Oh, is
there
there
is
another
one.
one?
There's a new one. You mentioned giving out grants several times. Where is that money coming from? That's a great question. And so, um, all the classes of the Regional Synod of Albany are determining themselves what to do with funds that the classes they themselves manage. Um, Whatever happens on that front, NEMA, I'll say, will have money coming from different classes that will be used and invested and managed. And so grants would be coming from that pot. But also, we can talk a little bit about covenant shares. Currently, right now, you pay to kind of three different bodies as a congregation. Two of those bodies are being consolidated, the Classis and the Regional Synod, and we will determine what would be an appropriate covenant share for NEMA once we have a better idea how many people are in it, what's happening, or um, so money related questions will come. There'll be more clarity about that as things get more known.
Okay. Yeah, and that question came up at the last gathering, so I will lead into that question that was asked too. So, along with classes dues or middle assembly dues, assessments, covenant shares is the word that we'll be using going forward. Has there been any progress made with how salary and benefits will be determined by NEMA? If not, when will this be determined?
Yeah, so that has been a discussion. And so what we're doing is pulling together what the classes are doing, and we're going to have to determine that. Um, that seems to be a conversation where we will probably have a better idea later in this year, but definitive answers, I think I'm safe to say, would probably come once a middle assembly is the real thing getting together. It seems something good for them to vote on. I could be misspeaking there, so anyone else on the NEMA transition team could jump in on that front.
So going back to the question on employment of LGBTQ plus ministers, part of the distinction in existing case law is whether there is a committed religious belief that contradicts that employment law. To clarify, if the Middle Assembly accepts both types of churches, how does a church describe the reason for their inconsistency with their overseeing body, being that the Middle Assembly oversees the minister? the ministers?
Yeah, so I think maybe what might be clarifying is to say the religious belief here is not a particular stance on LGBT viewpoints. The religious belief here is respect for others. And so the consistory who is working to call a minister and how they see fit, particularly on this issue of LGBTQ plus inclusion, um, our religious belief in the sense of case law would be are we respecting you? And so we would effectuate, if we want to get really legal, the desires of a consistory to call a minister or ordain an elder or deacon based on what that consistory has discerned is faithful action on their front. And so I hope that will help to clarify. I think what's kind of hard in conversations about LGBTQ plus inclusion is that there's more than two perspectives. There's actually many perspectives, and this stance assumes that, and it assumes that you have come faithfully and honestly to your position, and the assembly will not discriminate based on your position or who you are. So I hope that clarifies some of that.
Thank you, Trey.
Yeah.
From John Bowen, which I think this is maybe a question that is more appropriate for the Senate Executive Committee. And so if there are members of ASEC, I would encourage you to pipe up. How will the money and debts of the Regional Synod of Albany be handled?
Lindsay, I can field that one.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
So we're blessed with the Albany Synod that we currently do not have any debts, and that's a good thing. The executive committee will be having conversation at our next meeting about the invested funds that we have and the property at 1790 Grand Boulevard and how we will oversee the distribution of that. And in terms of the property, there's a wide range of options. Do we keep the building and invite middle assemblies to use it? Do we sell the building outright? Do we give the building away to another organization that could use it? Um, yeah, so there's a number of options that we have to discern in terms of the funds that the Albany Synod has. Um, Again, we have the responsibility to carry over those funds to both middle assemblies. And we have to, at our next executive committee meeting, come up with a formula that will appropriately and adequately and fairly distribute those funds to the two middle assemblies.
Thank you, Bob. Um, Next question from Dan King. Do you see the middle assemblies assisting smaller and or struggling churches in building their membership? Would the middle assembly have a role in marketing a reformed church, or will that be left solely to the local church?
Dan, I love your questions because it hits on three of our four commitments of being relational, being wanting each other's flourishing, and being adaptable. And so what I don't think we'll do is probably hire someone to market churches. I do think we would have different committees or special ministries that for people who would like to connect about that, and maybe there would be staff support to that. Maybe that's something that happens. But again, the Middle Assembly is something that we're expecting each other to be part of and active participants in. And so if that's something people want to connect on, I'm sure we would love to celebrate that and encourage that and nourish that and make sure that grows. So um, yes, with an asterisk to your question, Dan.
seeing that there aren't any questions in the chat right now, I'm going to go back to the other question that we had from the abiding assembly that might be good to ask here too. How would you handle a request from a member church that presents a person who identifies as LGBTQ plus to be taken under the care of the Middle Assembly as a candidate for ordination as a minister of word and sacrament? I think maybe this is clear, but if you want to elaborate more on it,
That's
Trey, that'd be
great.
great.
Yeah. We would take them under care as any other student under care would be. Um, they would also go through all the exams that any other student would go out through. They would also need to show, just like in every classes, the desire and sense of calling that is required for that specific ordained role. And so we would make that happen.
There are currently not any other questions in the chat, so ask away. Or if there's something that one of the presenters or someone from the NEMA team. Oh, I think I have one. Um, oh, never mind. Just Kent McHurd signing out. See you, Kent. Um, but yeah, if there's something that one of the transition team members or the presenters have that they want to elaborate on a question that's been asked or a point that was made in the presentation, while others think about questions. Oh, question. How large do you anticipate NEMA to be?
That's a great question. I think it's safe to say that it will be the majority of the congregations in the Regional Synod of Albany. Um, with that,
Yeah, and as far
okay.
as numbers, so currently, forgive me, I might not have this exactly right, but I do deal with the database, so I might be the one that has the closest possible. There are about 80 churches nope, 77, I think, churches within the Regional Synod of Albany. Um, and yeah, as the abiding assembly has said, that they're kind of hoping between 10 and 25 churches will be a part of them, and I think it's very possible that they'll have that at least 10. So we could be seeing up to like 67, 70 churches, but as few as like 50. So it's going to be a larger number of churches. Um, question: How will we recruit new pastors from seminary, and will we pursue more diversity in cultures?
Great question. I think an ethos around creativity will continue, right? So, for instance, I am in this region because I've participated in the Albany Synod Fellowship Program. I think that type of energy and creativity um, would continue. I don't think the Albany Synod Fellowship Program will be in NEMA, but I think people who want to think creatively like that would want to do something here. And the same for diversity in cultures. Most of our pastors come from two seminaries, but as the abiding folks said, as denominationalism becomes less pronounced in the North American church, it makes total sense to also connect with other seminaries, I think. So, and then the next question is, please introduce the 12 members of your NEMA committee. And I'm going to ask Lindsay to do that or Bob, as I don't have our list and we'll forget some people.
Yeah.
So, is that
Yeah,
possible?
give me a second and I will.
Okay,
I
great.
do have the list if you want to.
Or
Matt will.
Emmanuel
Perfect.
can. Okay.
Okay, great.
So, yes, we have Rich Dykstra, Randy Korkner, and Trey, and Lindsay, Amy, Kat, and David Vanderwall, Bob Hoffman, David Walsh, and Noreen. Yeah, Noreen, help me with your surnames. And then Patty Vargra. And then maybe, yeah, that will give you a good idea. And this is the team in action. You can see the faces. Maybe you can recognize some of the people there, and how we do our work.
Thank
Yeah, and
you,
I would just
Emmanuel.
say, yes, Noreen. Do you want me not? You're not mute. You're muted, Maureen. I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay.
He's
Okay,
muted.
there you go.
I think he missed a few. So can I run through them again?
Yes, go for
Okay.
it.
Steve Meyer, David Patterson, Trey Turpak, Randy Karcher, Amy Catt, Amy Burdett, David Vanderwall, Rich Dykstra, Patty Varga, Nancy Landergan, and David Walsh.
Thank
And
you.
yours truly.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you, Maureen. And I would say it's a team made up mostly of elders. There are several clerks who are both a mix of elders and ministers on the team. And then, yeah, there's a handful of ministers as well. So it's a fairly diverse group as Reformed Church folk go. Yeah, it's been good to work with them. I'm going to move on to the next question. What is NEMA's view on marrying LGBTQ plus couples in the church?
Great question, Bonnie. So the view, I think, correct me if I'm wrong again, transition folks. NEMA as an assembly does not have a view. We think that that belongs to the Board of Elders and your consistory. I think that's,
Yeah.
I think, just Reformed Church thinking, and so yes.
There are not any questions in the chat currently, so if you do have a question, now is a great time to pipe up.
Lindsay, I want to comment
Yeah.
about Steve's response about the
Yeah.
fair representation across the synod on the NEMA transition team. There's 2 members from each classes.
Except Montgomery classes, which has one.
That's
Right?
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I think I'm I'm looking down at the frequently asked questions
Mhm.
document that the Regional Synod has. I think number 9 is a great one that people might not really think about. What will representation look like in the middle assemblies? Um, each church will have the same kind of representation within the middle assembly they join as they currently have within their classes. Each middle assembly will be represented at General Synod by one minister and one elder according to the membership on their of their middle assembly. And this will be very similar to how we send people now to General Synod. There is a current constitutional amendment that's going through. We don't know if it's going to pass or not, but currently that is a very good answer. Yeah.
Here, I think this is a good question too from the last session that I'll just offer to the group. Can you describe what the transition process will look like for a church? What changes can they expect in the first year?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
So at our last meeting, we had quite a bit of discussion around how do we receive churches well? And so there'll probably be some form of like intake form. We just want to know about you, how well to care for you, how you would like to show up in the middle assembly. Again, we expect that you are an active participant in this NEMA assembly, and how you would like to connect with others. Maybe it's about marketing or recruiting seminarians or something like that. And then we will collectively, as the NEMA assembly, probably approve different policies, whether that be around pay scale or preaching elders, commission to pastors. But also, we planned, hopefully, that we were going to have an early time to simply connect. What that would look like, where that would be, unknown. So you might have a field trip on your horizon if you're thinking about NEMA. And so look forward to that. It won't just be to a meeting about business, it will largely be to a meeting about connecting. And so right now, as this is in its infancy, we hope that folks who join NEMA want to be part of growing something that's delightful, as cheesy as that sounds, as our name is. So changes for your church, actually, I don't think if you're not part of a consistory, the, you know, Jane in the pew won't feel that much difference. And so you can expect that it's largely about those who are making these changes happen will be connected to it. Um, so I think that's a fair answer. Yeah, I see some people. Okay.
Thanks, Trey. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big question. A question from Rusty in the Clarksville Community Church. What are your plans for vocational development in the Middle Assembly?
Yeah, so I mean, our immediate things would we are hoping to continue as many of the currently operating regional synod ministries, which would also include the School of Ministry, mediation team, those types of things. So immediately, that's what those would look like. I'm fairly confident that those will grow and evolve as we as a Middle Assembly need it to. And so I think it would be great that preaching elders, I know that in Albany classes, there's a group that meets together and they study the text together and they just have fellowship with one another. I think that would be great to have pockets of that across the Middle Assembly. So, yeah.
Great. Thank you. From Sharon, is it fair to say that NEMA will allow churches to make their own decisions about human sexuality issues and not force them to take a position as a church? I ask this because I believe that most churches in the RSA are in discernment about this.
Sharon, that is exactly the way that NEMA is intending to approach this. um, that churches and specifically your board of elders and consistory will make decisions regarding that themselves. But as an assembly together, which is distinct from a consistory or the general synod, we're going to show up with respect for one another, right? Um, a colleague of mine won't be able to bring charges against me because I'm married to a man, right? And I won't be able to bring charges to someone because they have a traditional view on marriage. That's not how we're choosing to show up as an assembly. But churches have their own role, and consistories are their own assembly. Yeah.
Thank you. Question from Anita. If other classes are like Rochester classes, there is a huge contingent of retired pastors. Will there be a way to tap into some of their insights and experience as churches are supervised? We have been fortunate to have some retired ministers serve as supervisors, which is helpful when we have so few installed ministers.
Yes. I think we're
This is a common
all those who would
experience,
like to
right?
be part of NEMA and participate in oversight and care and caring for one another and pursuing the mission of God amongst us. I think we would welcome. Now there might be retired ministers who said, "I have retired," and we would also respect that. But we would welcome anyone who would like to jump in. That is for sure, Anita.
Lindsay, maybe one of the concepts that we played with that we can consider is that we thought we were in need of like a portal or a forum for theological discussion and practical theology. And that's exactly where I think also our retired ministers could help with. There are so many sociological issues on the table that needs to be discussed. Even the current political situation, you just see people responding from gut and not really deep theological discussion. So we were really thinking of creating a space even for systematic theology and something else where we can just connect with each other. And that's a perfect place where we can also use the wisdom of our retired ministers. And yeah, I think that could be helpful in the future.
What other questions you folks have? Are there thoughts that transition team members are having that they want to expand on anything?
I just want to say thank you to specifically the Regional Center of Albany, specifically Lindsay and Bob. neither of these transition teams would be able to do the work that we're doing without uh, the serious heavy lift that both of them are doing. And I just commend you for that, and I hope everyone here will commend them for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If there are no other questions, maybe we can wrap up early. Um, so I would just give my short announcements that please do visit the Regional Synod of Albany restructure page, albanysynod.org/restructure, and you can find the question and answer page that are um, that are posted there, and also the upcoming events for NEMA are posted there as gatherings for NEMA are posted there as well. They will be meeting on Saturday, March 14, presenting again following the School Classes meeting. It's not the classes meeting; it's a separate event, but it happens to be following at the Glen Reformed Church at 11 a.m. Again on Sunday, March 22nd at the Reformed Church of Colony at 2 p.m. and then on Sunday, April 12 at 4 p.m. on Zoom, they will be presenting again. There is another question here, which is from John Bowen. Are you inviting churches from other classes to join NEMA?
Great question. So, as is the case across the entire binational denomination, right? So, we're in the United States and Canada. Churches are discerning to which middle assembly they will go, as well as ministers, right? Ministers are not members of churches, they're members of classes. And so, truthfully, anyone can join NEMA. Um, Actually, right now, there are some Canadian ministers who have joined Schenectady classes, who I think, in all intents and purposes, are going to be joining NEMA. And everyone in the Regional Synod of Albany, of course, is welcome to join NEMA. But yeah.
Yeah. And there haven't been conversations, I think, to the knowledge of either transition team with folks outside the Regional Synod of Albany. But if there were, I think
It's,
they would
maybe.
entertain those
Yeah.
conversations. Thank you again, everyone. If you do have any follow-up questions or feedback for this team or for the Abiding Assembly, you can email me those at program coordinator at albanysynod.org. Thank you so much for your time today. Members of the NEMA team, I think we are meeting again on this same link at 12:15, but I'm going to close this link and we will open it up again in a half an hour. So thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you and bye.